Busuya mama kwa basronko so the Bagana Politics Avenue so Busuya mama yembun ra yensemu. Say no first time out here, no subscribe, no share, no hit notification bell so am then send ba political airline so near the B aba dum. Busuya bafo stock CEO. Busuya eno da oye nadwin say obu na kete manase odwane Afri Ghana enam sika bia anase sika bia efa na sase mremuti no oye nadwin say odwane Afri akosiki asala mo baabi akotena se ne court no ndi abusuan na nsema court no say bro kopie mo court no anase kopie mo airport no ana police for ensa aka no because of say odwane Afri a ene say ne private anase ne sika bia omode abande no sato so no ofa koti kwan bi so ayi sika no e de adwane Afri Ghana akwa buchi it all try say obo empty ne account no asana ofree ono na fofi antiata ama police for akwache na de omode na akwakotum abusuan ana ne lawyer so de nsem bi akọkuta breche no afa no de nsem bi atuja mmenkwanko tie nsem an lawyer e de tuja for that case no body that
arrive at optimal performance.
Right. But Prof, thank you so much for joining us on the news this afternoon. And if you didn't understand anything, at least Prof says that you should keep your plate a little empty for a while so that the government can do what it has to do. Away from the Eurobond and its matters, lawyers for former Chief Executive Officer for the Buffer Stock Company, Hanan Abdul Wahab, are filing an application to compel the Bureau of National Investigations, BNI, to produce him. Now, over 24 hours after his arrest, Hanan Abdul Wahab was arrested Saturday night at the Accra International Airport while preparing to fly to the UK. The reason for his arrest, according to Deputy Attorney General Justice Srimsai, who announced the arrest on his Facebook page, is because Hanan attempted to empty one of his frozen bank accounts on Thursday. Now, this allegation has been rejected by lawyer for the Buffer Stock CEO, former Buffer Stock CEO, Godfred Dame, who threatened to cite the AG, his deputy, and the BNI boss for contempt.
Because in the first place, there has been no attempt by Hanan Abdul Wahab to withdraw any money from any account of his. Secondly, no account of his is frozen in the Republic of Ghana. I mean, thirdly, a court of law has given an order, essentially giving him permission to travel after the duration for medical purposes. And the Attorney General is aware of it. The Attorney General was actually in court. The Deputy Attorney General was in court. He argued. After hearing the argument, the trial judge granted his order, permitting him to travel. If the Attorney General is dissatisfied by the grant of the order for him to travel, they should have filed an appeal against the order. So there is no basis at all for his arrest. It's just an act of impunity. And now I can understand that the Attorney General is actually behind all the violations of human rights in the country. Yes, he himself owned up to it. And in owning up to it, he lied, clearly. The statement on Facebook by the Deputy Attorney General was a complete lie. Now, is that the Attorney General himself, who clearly issued an order for his arrest, is in contempt of court. And I'm going to file contempt of court proceedings against Dr. Ayini as well as Srimsai personally, as the Director General of BNI.
Oh, but that's not all. Godfred Dame, in an interview with journalists at the BNI office on Saturday, said that he had been denied access to his client since his arrest.
The opportunity to see our clients at all. Indeed, we were told flatly that they don't allow lawyers to see their clients on weekends. And that's quite perplexing. I'm surprised. If a person is arrested, say on Friday night or Saturday, he will be in without access to counsel. I mean, that's the republic in which we live now. And indeed, he's been picked up for no reason. As far as someone said, he's just been banded off into custody for no reason whatsoever. He's been given the right to leave the country, to travel to the country for a few days by a court of competent jurisdiction. The Deputy Attorney General himself was in court and argued, and this colleague of mine argued that day. And if indeed he had any objection to the order granted, he only had to appeal, but he had to resort to this surreptitious means of preventing from traveling. I think that this is totally unwarranted and unnecessary. There's no order of any court of competent jurisdiction preventing from accessing his account. The only order that they had was procured over a year ago before the discontinuance of the earlier prosecution. And we have a court ruling, a ruling of the High Court at Denta about 3 weeks ago to the effect that that order has lapsed. And that if the Attorney General indeed desires to come for a fresh freezing order, he has to apply to the court. He has not done so. There is no order of any court preventing him from accessing his funds. Be that as it may, he has not accessed any funds at all. He should produce to the public, to the whole Ghanaian Republic, for us to see the manner in which he claims Hanan attempted to withdraw any money from the account.
Well, he didn't end there. His lawyers, we're learning, are filing a habeas corpus, an application to compel the law enforcement agencies to immediately produce him before a judge in court. My colleague Fatal Bayaga joins us live from the court. Fatal, have you cited the application? What more should we know?
I have not seen this particular application, which is seeking to compel the BNI to produce Hanan before a judge here at the Accra High Court. I have not seen the application just yet. I spoke with Godfred Dame about an hour ago, and he told me, he hinted that they were going to do that. I have not seen him in court either, or any of his junior lawyers. But what I can say is that, and the conversation that I had with him, he said they are still, deeply concerned about the whereabouts of their client Abdul Hanan at this particular moment. In fact, he said that they left 3 contacts at the BNI office so that they could contact them in case of any development, because yesterday he was at the BNI office. He wasn't granted the opportunity to have access to his client, and then they left their contacts for the BNI officers to contact them in case of any development. He tells me that the last time I spoke with him, he said he has not received any call or message from the BNI office telling him to come and have access to his client, and that is a very big concern for him at the moment.
Okay, that's clear. So the application for habeas corpus you haven't cited, but the Attorney General earlier has been saying that he'd want to file an application for review of Hanan's travel order. Has he done that? And have you also heard anything about Godfred Dame's contempt suit as well?
The first thing I did when I got to court was to speak with an officer at the AG's office, and basically he told me that they had not, filed this particular review application. And in fact, Godfred Dame also told me that he had not received any notice from the AG's office, in respect to this particular review application. So at the moment, and based on the conversation that I had with this officer at the AG's office, they did not file this particular review application. So for some, in fact, the lawyers for Hanan, they are quite surprised that even though this particular application wasn't filed, the AG went on his Facebook page to say that this morning, today, they were going to be in court for a hearing in relation to this particular review application. So MFA, basically, what I can tell you is that based on the information that I have gathered here, the AG hasn't filed this particular review application just yet.
Right, 74.8 million in interest. The ministry says Ghana has now paid more than 2.1 billion to Eurobond holders since January 2025. The latest settlements reduces Ghana's external debt burden and strengthen investor confidence. We'll hear from the economist on the broader implications for the economy. But first, data and research analyst here joining us, Anthony Menu, joins me via Zoom with some background to Ghana's Eurobond repayment since the restructuring. Anthony, would you break this down? Take us through Ghana's Eurobond repayment since the debt restructuring.
MFR, the restructuring was actually completed in October 2024, and there was an agreement for bondholders to exchange their old bonds for new ones with longer dates of maturity and a 37% nominal haircut. Repayments actually resumed right after the deal. Since then, Ghana has made a payment of some $2.5 billion in the Eurobond obligations. The first payment was in October 2024, where we paid some $475.6 million. In 2025, we paid some $349.5 million. The same amount was actually paid in January 2025 as well. In July, we made a payment of some $349.5 million. Now, this year, we were expected to pay some $1.4 billion for this year, but earlier last year, the government paid some 709 million ahead of schedule, leaving a remaining $700 million, which has been paid this July 2026, MFA.
Anthony, those are lots of figures and monies you're mentioning, but does this mean that Ghana is ready to return to the international bond market at all?
Not yet, actually, MFA. These payments, although gives us some improvement in Ghana's credibility or ability to pay our debt or ability to service our debt, and which is going to make international investors see that there is some credibility here in Ghana. However, there is actually more to be done as far as external shocks and then exchange rate pressures are concerned.
Okay.
Early this year, we saw the finance minister indicating that Ghana will not be going to the Eurobond market this year. This is also agreed by the International Monetary Fund's fifth review document, which actually puts we going back to the market in 2028, MFA.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Anthony, for bringing some clarity to the figures. But now we have on Zoom technical advisor at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Theo Champon, to help us understand more on this particular story. Thank you so much for joining us, Doc. So Ghana has now paid over 2.5 billion since the Eurobond restructuring, as my colleague as well has been telling us. How much more of this interest how much of this is interest and how much of this as well as principal?
Good afternoon. Good to be here. Yeah, so per the statement that we put out this morning, specifically of the $700 million that was paid, the principal amount was $525.2 million, and then the interest payment came up to 174.8. So you can round it up, 525 in principal and 175 in interest payments.
For the very recent one, the 700 million, but over the period, we have paid a little over 2.5 billion. In all of it, have we been able to tell which one is, how much of this in total goes to the interest and how much of this 2 billion is also in the principal?
Yeah, so I can get the numbers for you, but I don't really have it off the top of my head. What is important is that in every payment that you make or every coupon payments that you make, you would be paying down both the interest and then you're paying down an element of the principal. And that is specifically what we have actually done here. And what is also, I think, extremely important, as your other reporter was indicating, is the fact that all of these have been done ahead of time. And that is sending a clear signal to the market that we are committed to paying not only the amounts that are due, but also paying ahead of time to send a strong signal of, confidence and the credibility that is really needed. And then the point that also was mentioned, this does not indicate or signal that we're going to borrow from the capital market anytime soon. It's really trying to make a clear signal that, one, we are paying, number two, the amounts have been taken care of, and then number three, it is not at the expense of the reserves of the country. So it's actually really a more proactive, liability management operation that the government and the Ministry of Finance is undertaking. I'm
glad that you touched on the reserves of the country. So in any way, if I searched deeply, we aren't incurring any form of damages at all in paying earlier than scheduled. Does it affect us in any way? Does it cost us anything at all?
It does not at all. What it actually does is you also get a little bit of savings from the time difference in terms of the interest that you would have paid. So there's something in finance people would call the time value of money, and then the timing right around that. So you could actually do this, and you can save a couple of basis points, in potential interest that you would have paid at the time that you had to pay. So it is not putting any undue pressure on the country's foreign forex reserves. Just this last month, the central bank, and it is reported on your news portal, had put in, close to about 2 billion or so as part of their regular forex intermediation in the market. This month, they may do around the 1 billion or so that they're doing. So there's enough liquidity within the market in terms of the forex. And then you also have enough to actually be able to take care of your debt obligations while you save a bit on the potential interest due to the earlier settlement of the payment.
Today, when we go to sleep, how much should we think that we still owe? How much should be on our minds?
We still, of course, as a country, we still have debt stock. There are payment obligations that you have to pay, both on the domestic side and then on the external side. In total, the figure close of last financial year was around 45% or so of GDP, which that's the total debt stock. No country pays everything straight away. In other words, there's no country that is not in debt. Let me put it that way. So what is really important is being able to make the payments at the time you say you're going to do. That is what sent us, and caused the economic and the financial crisis that we had, that at some point we were not in a position to pay our debt. And in December of 2022, we had to actually declare that we could not pay. And then there was all the debt restructuring and the haircuts and all of that. We are far from it. We have turned the corner, and we are sending a clear signal that we are committed to honoring our debt obligations.
What's our schedule looking like subsequently and moving forward? What's our schedule looking like?
So we do still have some payment obligations that we need to make for the Eurobonds going into 27. And then there's some other debt obligations on the commercial side, and also the domestic debt, the DDEP, the restructured bonds. There are coupon payments that need to be made. The important thing I was saying is that we are committed to meeting and making those obligations as and when they fall due. And if the timing allows, you can actually pay off a little earlier and save some, amount on that.
Thank you so much. Dr. Theo Achampong advises technically to the ministry. But question is, how does this really improve the economy? And joining me via Zoom is economist Professor Godfred Bobkin to help us understand what this really means for the economy, and most importantly, you and your bread and butter issues. Prof, it's good to have you on the show this afternoon. First of all, for they paying early, how does it materially improve Ghana's economic outlook?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to our service viewers and listeners. Well, it's good news for Ghana. But bear in mind that there are various stakeholders on this economy who make claims on this country. And clearly, given our experience with the debt crisis, we are prioritizing creditors, over other claims on government resources. Because if you look at the budget execution today, budget execution is around 73-74%, right? So there are different obligations of government to different people that perhaps in the ranking is not as high as, let's say, debt holders. Right, and it's simply also because we need to restore and consolidate investor confidence. So there are contractors and others who probably haven't paid from last year, 2 years ago, and all of that. But we are prioritizing the debt market because of its implications. And all of that. And also, I kind of agree with government that they do this because if you look at those who gave Ghana the opportunity to be alive today. It was actually not gold board. Today, we celebrate gold board for stability and all of that. Those who gave Ghana breathing space and equity, let's call that one breast milk, for Ghana to have the kind of future we have today, were actually Eurobond holders who sacrificed more than $4.7 billion, both in nominal debt haircuts and then also rescheduled payment, which free up space for the country to be able to have a future that we are talking about today. Then again, you can also link that to external bilateral, where they also they saved us about $2.8 billion and all of that. So given that we have reopened the debt markets, we need to build on that.
But we're not going until 2028. So paying now, does it still matter?
Yeah, but we don't need to wait to 2028 before we are faithful to our debt holders. But bear in mind that there's also another window to tap into foreign capital through the domestic market, where we can open it up to offshore investors. Okay, so you end up at the same point in one way or the other, like doing euro bonds, right? The only thing is that this one will be CD denominated, but it will be open to foreign offshore investors. We've done that in the time past. So if we need to build credibility and all of that, so we don't have the fiscal space to be able to meet all our obligations and operate at optimal level when it comes to budget execution and all of that. But it's important that we also prioritize the debt market and restore and consolidate investor confidence.
Prof,
it's good for the economy.
I'm going to probably even land on this, but the question is, we're satisfying our creditors. Does it coexist with how it will translate to my plate? Or we've got to hold on a bit on the plate or bread and butter issue and then try as much as possible to satisfy our creditors and a little later enjoy, paint a better picture. The technical people say that it hasn't harmed our reserves in any way. There's no damage to us paying early enough. But for my bread and butter, which is what I'm concerned about, doesn't matter.
I'll probably advise you to keep your plate empty a bit.
Okay.
I don't know how long you can postpone hunger, but we are not out of the woods totally. Okay, so there are priorities, there are scale of preference that the country will have to decide and all of that. Remember, some people are currently demonstrating for poor roads in their communities. Those who are traveling from Accra to Kumasi, looks like they are going to hell this afternoon, but they are just going to Kumasi. Okay, so we have all these challenges at our disposal and all of that. But the point also is that we have agreements. Remember that these payments are consistent with agreement that we have with Euro bond holders and also with domestic debt exchange holders and the rest of them. So we need to just manage all of that. But I think that is part of the foundation we are laying.
Okay.
And bear in mind, Ghana has been laying foundation since 1957. I'm not too sure what we want to put on that foundation, but keep that in check as well.
Prof, so you got me excited until you dropped that one.
And the government strategy is that the next 2 years, 2025 and 2028, they will use it to consolidate this kind of investor confidence, and therefore they would want to be on track when it comes to our debt repayment. But it's also important that as a country, we are responsible to honor our debt obligations. But we must also bear in mind that we have similar obligations to every stakeholder in this
Ghana,
country, including Ghanaians who need roads, who need hospitals, and the rest of them. Okay, so we need to look at all of that. And sometimes that is the challenge the Minister of Finance has, right? Competing interests. We have limited resources. How do you allocate them in such a way that you're able to...
When they are sema a course of political airline, so if a Bafak CEO, Bafak stock CEO, anka Obiane every Ghana, and I'm skebia, I must say, Afan is say, a buy and sa akano, I must see a yehu, baby, or modern akotama, the lawyer. I friend Godfred Dami ne niabri pa say or hear the client. If you just subscribe and not subscribe, no share, no hit notification bell so am I. Send ba political line so NDP abadum. That was